My name is Daniel Perez. I work within the Research Development IT group in Hewlett Packard Enterprises, and today I'm here to talk about ChatOps in the enterprise, specifically doubling down on ChatOps in the enterprise. ChatOps is a concept that we introduced at DOS 2015 last year. We sort of showed our baseline integrations, our initial investments in there, but this year we like to double down on that and not only show you what we've done since then in the past year, but put you in a place where you can take ChatOps back to your company and implement it within your teams. So yeah, let's get started. We'll talk a little bit about our DOS journey. DevOps is a journey, so it's important to see where we've been and where we are now. We'll talk about what ChatOps is, give an overview of Hubots, one of the key enablers of the ChatOps movement. We'll then follow with design and security considerations to take in mind, follow up with a quick live demo, and a couple of words from quick research that we did on collaboration and what it means to DevOps industries. So yeah, our DOS journey. This is our third year here, and I'd like to give thanks to ElectricFlow and the IT Revolution for allowing us to be here. And it's important to take a step back and see where we've been in the past couple of years. Sort of as a background to what we do in our team, we deploy software development lifecycle applications to the R&D teams out there. Basically all facets of IT in the business. All our solutions are highly available, 24/7 support, and scaled out in a worldwide fashion. And in DOS 2014, we introduced how we've deployed a continuous integration solution, ElectricFlow, across our organization. It was a self-service deployment. It was a deployment that allowed developers to quickly onboard their teams in an automated fashion, repeatable environments, giving control to the developers to implement their pipelines as they see fit. We've got about 1 million jobs a month being run, about 3,000 plus active users. And, it gave them the baseline projects for them to be able to, implement their development pipelines. And sort of, our, understanding from what we did, we took these concepts and deployed this application at a scale and applied it to our other teams as well. And in DOS 2015, we took these self-healing initiatives and monitoring initiatives that we implemented for ElectricFlow and deployed it across for other applications. Kind of that mindset of taking something that you've learned and not only sticking to it, but applying it to your other teams and doing something with that. So in DOS 2015, we talked about self-healing and monitoring strategy that we implemented across our applications. There was these investments that we put in place that gave us these integrated pipelines for not only ElectricFlow, but other applications as well. And it gave us a lot of insight to our environments. And that's also where we talked about how, our initial ChatOps investments. So this year we'll be talking about what we've done since then. So what is ChatOps? To put it in GitHub's term, it's a term that was recently coined by GitHub a couple of years back. And in their own words, it's the idea of pulling tools into the middle of the conversation. As a developer, you often have different, defect tools, SCM tools, CI tools, all these tools out there that you're using on a daily basis, but nothing really bridges that gap together. There's nothing that really ties them together, and I think this is where ChatOps really matters there, when you basically combine the idea of persistent chat, historical data, the key developers, working in solutions, into a central point of collaboration, a central point of communication where you can pull in graphs, you can pull in metrics, you can pull in the team members that need to be there to implement whatever change that has to be done. And I think that's where ChatOps really shines. It's a key enabler of DevOps with this use of persistent chat. And as an example, you have the event where you have open source monitoring tools you might have put in place that detect an issue, maybe a memory or CPU or maybe blocking sessions happening, and it opens up a ticket, talks into your chat room, and then brings the key people into the conversation to get what needs to be done. ChatOps provides that one-stop shop. You can pull in graphs, quick replies, quick automations. It really enables your developers to work in their environments. And Hubots is sort of what bridges all that together. You can write your integrations out there to, kick off jobs, to clean up servers or anything out there. So our particular Hubot that we have, his name is Hammer. He's got a lot of great integrations out there that we have. You can do things like, data lookups, pull in graphs into the conversation, grab metrics from Nagios or Grafana. We can run automations, so we're using ElectricFlow for a lot of our CI/CD pipelines out there, and we can kick jobs off. You write alias commands, or perhaps even write graphing metrics into the room as well. Persistent data, that's an important part of Hubot. You want to make sure that you have data that persists across restarts. In our particular bot, we've got Redis is what we're using as a backend for that. You're storing user information, historic data, key value pair data as well. Or you can write integrations as well using Mongo. It's another setup. We've deployed our Hubot in a pretty well-working integrated pipeline. We're using GitHub Enterprise to store source code, ElectricFlow to deploy the actual bot. Flowdoc is one of the chat tools that we're using to implement ChatOps like that. And Hubot Webhook Listener, it's another component that doesn't really matter. Key technologies that we're using, ElectricFlow, like I mentioned, Nagios, Flowdoc, Grafana as a backend, Kibana for log processing as well. But a lot of the times you see ChatOps, people are they'd like to automate a lot of things out there, and a lot of the times it doesn't make sense. You want to make sure you can automate things that make sense, but you really shouldn't be automating everything. Certain things don't really have to be that automated, or sometimes things can be over-engineered as well, to the point where implementing such automation is simply not worth the effort. You want to make sure that you're not over-engineering anything out there. Design considerations and best practices. So whenever you're implementing your Hubots, you want to make sure that you can implement your Hubot in a lightweight fashion. It doesn't have to be a large machine to do that. You can use a small 2x4 machine, or you can actually implement it in the cloud as well. Our particular bot, we can Dockerize it, so it's a very easy way to deploy that. You want to make sure that you tie your automation into SCM. You want to make sure that it's automated completely from end to start, or start to finish, sorry. And sort of best practices, you want to keep your automation script simple. You don't want to over-engineer anything. You want to avoid single points of failure when you're writing your scripts as well. I've seen a lot of times people design a chatbot script that pulls data, puts it into a database, but if your chatbot dies, it's a single point of failure. You want to avoid that. You want to make sure you keep your scripts chatbot agnostic or chat tool agnostic. There's tools out there like Flowdoc, Slack, HipChat that you can use for that. And you want to make sure to reuse code as much as possible. You don't want to reinvent the wheel. Node.js gives you the ability to it gives you all these libraries that you can use, standard libraries to implement in your chat tools as well. Security considerations. So whenever you stand up your chatbot, you got to keep a lot of details in mind of security. You want to make sure that you utilize some of these security features that Hubot comes standard. Hubot auth is one of the essentially Hubot uses the Express framework for offering a port for you to use when you're writing your integrations. You can use that for basic authentication. You can also implement an Nginx proxy as well to secure communications with the chatbot if you're writing that REST API backend to the chatbot. Hubot environment is a file that you can use to store your passwords. Environment variables out there. You want to make sure you secure your file. You want to make sure that the user that's running Hubot can only read that with the right permissions. Also, you want to avoid using personal accounts when you're writing integrations. So if you've got an integration to, say, ElectricFlow or some other tool out there, you want to make sure that you're not using a personal account. You want to use an automation account for that as well. And Hubot auth is a module you can use in Hubot where you can do role-based access to your scripts. So in the event of having to limit access to a particular command that has to be run in a certain room, you can implement that with Hubot auth. It's not too difficult to set up. And it does allow you to create that separation of concerns. You want to make sure that only X developers can run the script and they have the permission to do so. Also, in the context of the applications that you're writing, you want to make sure that you're giving the right scope of permissions to the automation account. So if you're running a script that does deploy, you only want to make sure that only certain people can run the script, and you also want to make sure that the automation account you're using only has access to a particular process or procedure that it can only run. You don't want to give it God mode access, so that would not be a good thing. And the last security consideration is the fact that a lot of these chat systems like FlowDoc, Slack, they're hosted off premises. So you want to sort of take the idea that, hey, what you're writing into the chat room is not being stored inside the company. You want to make sure that that your security teams validate these tools. You want to make sure that you're not writing passwords into these chat tools as well. Some other features you can use as well as a single sign-on to quickly sign on to your applications in a secure way. And if some of these security considerations don't work for you, if your security divisions decide, hey, that chat tool is not something we want to use, or it's not something that we feel comfortable storing the data off premise, that's when you can use enterprise versions of some tools like HipChat or Mattermost. I think they offer some tools out there that do that. So key lessons learned. You want to make sure that you pick the tool that fits your use case. We've been using a handful of tools out there, and some of them work for us, some of them did not. Some of them our security teams did not validate, and some of them they did. So you want to make sure that the tool sort of works for you. I know that we particularly use FlowDoc. We like the inbox section, the threaded conversations. That's something that works for us. Keep integration simple. A lot of the times when we started off in our ChatOps investments, we wrote very one-off type solutions that they work well at the time, but sometimes they got too complex. They weren't working together, or they had too many missing components or too many components to use, and they break every now and then. Also, making sure that you've got the right data in the room. You don't want to overflow your chat room with too much data. It doesn't make sense. It can confuse developers. You want to make sure that the data there is relevant. And again, not everything needs to be automated. Simple rule of thumb is, if it's something that you're trying to do 3 or 4 times a day, you can write a simple automation to complete that task. That's probably worth it. If not, it's something you might not need to be doing. And you want to make sure you also properly onboard your team members when you're implementing ChatOps. A lot of the times, you've got teams going out there into the chat room trying to execute commands. They're not really sure how to use it. It's not well documented for them to be able to use these commands on the fly. So you want to make sure that they're all properly onboarded for that. Fun stats: we've got about 10 applications or so onboarded within our organization. Around 70 plus active commands that we've been able to write. Somewhere around 30 or so developers. We see hundreds of calls being done to the chatbot, and we've expanded our chat investments to over 10 or so teams in the last 6 months. So let me do a quick live demo on our chatbot system. Let me see a little bit of delay here. So FlowDoc is a tool that we're using for our ChatOps. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the tool or not, but it's got the basic, the flow room concept where you have your different chat rooms out there. You've got your internal chat area to talk as well. And basically you're allowed to, at any point in time, if you're working on something, bring anyone that needs to be in the room to be able to reference historical data, historical chats, or any previous issues that have been taking place related to what you're trying to do. And you can all bring it inside the same chat room. On the right-hand side, you got the inbox where you can tag a lot of information that might be relevant to what you're doing. So here we've got a couple of integrations to GitHub Enterprise to where whenever you're making commits or pull requests, everything shows up, issues. We've got integrations as well to ElectricFlow to whenever you're kicking off the deploy, it shows the information on the right-hand side. It's very extensible in that sense, but chat tools out there like Slack or HipChat, they've all got their different features out there that work well as well. Here's our chatbot. His name is Hammer. Not sure if you can see that or not. Oh, sorry, wrong area. One of the fun things you can do is ask him what he knows. So if you do Hammer help, he'll give you a list of all the different chat commands that he knows how to do. Some of them, the tools that we use more frequently are, getting metrics from our application server, seeing how many users are present in the system, how many repositories we've created, or maybe even kick off a couple of, EC jobs out there, ElectricFlow jobs. We've got integrations to OpenStack to where we can manage our infrastructure. We've got a command here, os auth ec dev. Going to authenticate to our OpenStack environment and list the servers that we have in our infrastructure. bunch of servers out there. You can do things like control the infrastructure as well. Novas, delete rel 7 AC. Our chat system says, hey, the request was sent to the OpenStack service. And we can list the list of servers out there, and we'll see that the server itself is gone. It's in the deleting phase. Something else that we've implemented is being able to pull graphs into the chat room. We're using Grafana as a front end and Influx database to store a lot of metrics out there. So I can do a quick command on that as well. Of course, it's taking its sweet time. There it is. We've got a dashboard out there that shows us some of these graphs. We've tied it into GitHub Enterprise, ElectricFlow, and some other tools out there. So, like I mentioned, there's an issue happening, blocking sessions, or some CPU or load is too high. You can go to the chat room and have your chatbot sort of bring in these graphs into the room and say, hey, how's the CPU looking like? And using Grafana, you can do graphs pretty much with anything out there. In this case, we're utilizing ElectricFlow's StatsD backend to sort of write these metrics out to the database and draw them with the dashboard. And here we can see our chatbot bringing back the graphs into the room. So it really sort of bridges that gap. Like I said, there's a lot of tools out there like Nagios, Grafana, and your CI systems out there. And being able to bring that into a single point of collaboration, I think, is very powerful. And lastly, one of our other integrations that we have is being able to execute ElectricFlow commands. So being able to run procedures, list projects, list pipelines, list environments, kick off pipelines. You see list projects. Run a quick procedure. It's a test procedure out there. And basically get the stats on that. There it is, step completed. It's not working there. Sorry, trying to get back to my presentation. Oh, there it is. It's really small. Sorry about that. Of course, it goes to the beginning. Yeah, so in summary, we strongly believe that ChatOps really is a key enabler of DevOps with the use of persistent chat. Again, being able to reference historical data in a chat room, being able to bring the key developers into the conversation and execute on demand or on live automations to pull graphs or kick off any job out there. I think it's very powerful. It allows you to develop at a much quicker pace. Gives you automated insight into most, or if not all, your environments if you set it up that way, and it does grant that accountability for your team, knowing who ran what command at what time and who has certain permissions to execute these automations. And Hubots, it's a node-based application, simple to set up, doesn't take much infrastructure to do that. The Node.js sort of library gives you these integrations to all the different Node.js platform tools you can integrate with. It's chat tool agnostic, so you can write these these integrations with FlowDoc, HipChat, or other tools as well. Very highly customizable. You can basically write your integrations to do just about anything, and gives you that on-demand automation. So we've got a repo in GitHub.com where you can grab a Docker file and set up your own chatbot, and it'll give you the ability to sort of run commands with ElectricFlow or graph dashboards if you have your own Grafana instance and server out there. Before we finish this, I also want to give John, He's also with me from HP Enterprise, and he wants to talk about a quick survey that we did, a blind study, and showing the result on that. So
Daniel, thank you.
Sorry.
That was really cool. I think I'm good.
Sorry.
If you want to do that, that'd be awesome. So Daniel was sharing this presentation with me before we did this, and I said, there's something I can add to what you've done. I lead our digital research team, and we just completed a study into DevOps adoption. And the question, one of the hypotheses was, what are the practices that are helping people be successful with DevOps? I thought you might be interested, and I want to preview a little bit of it with you here. Now, we talked to 400 different people, and this was run by YouGov, and we looked at it, and we said, how widespread deployed is DevOps? And we got a variety of answers. Some people said, well, we have widespread deployment. Others were researching, some were piloting, a whole variety of places, right? And when we did some analysis of how successful were they, and we did a cluster analysis to break down the groups, and we discovered this interesting pattern, and I want to share that with you. So we found this group of people who are informal DevOps leaders, and I'll explain to you why they were informal. They were informal because they didn't declare widespread deployment of a consistent process and methodology. Rather, they were in the researching and piloting mode of studying DevOps. And that was interesting. We found that this group, to contrast with the group that were formally deployed DevOps, who had widespread deployment, they had different results, remarkably different results. Now, the informal group were exclusively agile. None of the water scrumfall type of agile, but they were very pure agile, either enterprise agile, some form of SAFe, or some form of small team agile, right? And here's where it got to be really interesting, and it surprised us. And the surprise was, we looked at how well they performed, and we looked at a couple of different ways of looking at how performance was. Frequency of release being one thing, and the thing that surprised us as we looked at it was this group of informal DevOps adopters, the ones who are still piloting and experimenting, they were faster and deployed with better quality than the group that declared themselves as having widespread DevOps adoption. Now that was curious, and we started to dig deeper and to look at what were the characteristics of what were they doing. Now, one would expect to see them embrace automation, to embrace consistent KPIs and consistent metrics, but not so. What we discovered was this group declared the most important thing for them was collaboration and communication and sharing. Very consistent with this idea of persistent chat and ChatOps, of how do you bring teams together to work together. We also looked then at, are they doing, maybe they're not really doing DevOps, they're getting some sort of a different effect, but no. They're heavily doing continuous integration and continuous delivery. Furthermore, when we looked at, and this is a bit of an eye chart, but I'll just unpack it a bit for you, we looked at very specific DevOps practices. Are they doing trunk-based development? Are they building and running the code? Do they have this idea of build and run your own code? Are developers involved in more QA than historically? And in fact, across the board, this group of people we called the informal DevOps leaders were in fact doing DevOps in almost every sense of the way, except for they didn't declare themselves as being done. Which really leads to a conclusion, and in my interaction with our DevOps leaders inside of our IT organization, we started to compare notes. And the aha we came to is this conclusion that DevOps is, and it's one that should resonate. It resonates with us and resonates with a lot of people. It's not about a journey. It's not about a destination, but it's a journey. It's about DevOps is not being done. It's about having a team that owns and is responsible for continually improving what they're delivering. And the way they do it is not by declaring a methodology and says, here's the one way to do it, you shall follow our way. It's about giving teams the ability to learn and to improve and to continuously improve, which has been a benchmark of what we've done internally in our IT team. It's been one of the things that in talking with Daniel prior to this, they've been doing, and it's embedded in ChatOps. This is the spirit of DevOps that we discovered in this research, quite unintentionally. But it resonates. It resonates with what we're doing here, and it really resonates. And I wanted to take an opportunity to share it with you because I think it reinforces the power of ChatOps and the power of collaboration to give your teams the ability to work together.
John, thanks.
Thanks, Daniel.
Appreciate it. Awesome. Yeah, so I guess Q&A. Anybody have any questions? Hey, Mark?
When you guys rolled out ChatOps, when you guys rolled out ChatOps, did you guys actually get a reception or the use being different than originally that was planned? So like you came out using ChatOps saying everybody's going to want to run jobs and look at graphs, but then after it came out, they used it in a completely different manner, or was it exactly aligned with what you expected?
We started seeing some teams writing further use cases that we did not think about. For example, SSHing to remote machines securely to implement, a deploy or release directly. We were like, hey, just grab information, start on with just saying, hey, get the graphs or get some information like that. But they were doing straight up deploys with Hubot, which was interesting. It was fun. Hi.
Is there anything you would recommend just based on your experience of really where's the starting point? Because I think the possibilities with ChatOps are really endless. Mm-hmm. So if there's one, piece of information we could take away to go start, ChatOps tomorrow, what would it be?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if I showed it earlier in the slides, but we got a repository on GitHub. It's currently not live. I had a couple of issues this morning with a demo that I was trying to prepare for tomorrow. But essentially, you can go there, download the Docker file once it's live. I'm thinking in a couple hours I'll push it to github.com, where you can start off this Docker file, kick off a container that has the Hubot instantiated, the Redis backend to store persistent data, and it's got a supervisor service to keep those running inside a Docker environment. And you were mentioning getting started. We've had a couple of dojos out there where we had teams interested in implementing ChatOps within their projects, and I found that a lot of the time we spent sort of explaining how to start, how to install Redis, how to install Node.js, how to set the proxy for Node.js. We spent about 45 minutes explaining this, and by the time we were done, we were like, all right, now let's start with Hubot, and they were like, okay, now let's start with Hubot. So I think having this Docker file ready for you to stand up, you don't have to worry about sort of standing it up on your own. Later down the road, you can go back and see how everything else works, but you can get started with that. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. And cool. I just to add on to that, I think you could do a lot with it. You can execute commands, right? And correct. I think as we saw from the analysis, the community at large is valuing the collaboration piece. Indeed. So I think it feels like there's still value, even if from day one you're not executing commands necessarily, but you're allowing the app dev community and other members of the SDLC cycle to be able to contribute. There's still value in that.
Yep. And it's interesting too, like you mentioned, getting started. Some people think, hey, we're going to implement this entire, automation pipeline around Hubot, but I think something as simple as getting the bot to say hi is exciting enough. Once you get the bot to talk back to you, that's when you can start taking over the world. And we had a couple of people say, hey, we finally got it to say back, respond back with commands or give me some basic information with our team. And I think that itself is powerful. Yeah. Any other questions? Hi, Anne. Oh, sure. Actually, you have the mic, so sure thing.
So kind of leveraging off his question and what you're talking about is something new. So you have to convince people that this new thing is good to do and it's worth the effort to learn. But then also, what are your metrics? How do you sell the value? How is your life different now? How do you convince teams to go through the process?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. There's a lot of different teams inside of HPE. I think recently we've, if you haven't heard or not, we're going through 2 divestitures simultaneously. So ChatOps may mean different things to different teams. At least for when we're getting started, we're telling teams, all right, let's just do something simple, do something repeatable, something you can share out there to sort of implement what you need to get done. It's a little bit difficult to define exactly, but some things like the amount of times you can release, making sure you're not bringing in errors into your chatbot environments, ensuring that you have your pipeline set up correctly to where you're not introducing these issues with your chatbot. But It's still something ongoing. It's certainly something new. Within our team, we've sort of gone comfortable, familiar. Like you said, some teams that are operating in different standards or operating under different metrics may see this and say, "Hey, it's not something that works for us or not." So it's a battle. Hi.
Is there a class of problems where you found you wish that it was not automated with a chatbot?
So let's see, like something that we implemented that we said, you know what, this is a bad idea. Yeah, so as you saw, we showed an integration to Grafana, where it's a dashboard that provides you graphs and stuff like that. Our earlier version of that, we implemented a script where Hubot itself, every 20 minutes, would do the pings or get these metrics and save it in its own Mongo database. And that's a bad idea because if the chatbot dies, you're losing all that metrics, all that data. So you want to make sure you're not introducing these single points of failure. I think when we saw that, we said, hey, we should look at something else, and we looked at Grafana. Any other questions? Sure.
Hey, sorry. The gentleman that spoke second, is that study that you did? Is that the questions that were asked, or how you went about it? Is that documented anywhere? Did you guys publish that somewhere? I'd be interested to do that with some of the where I work or with some of the clients that we work with, because there's a lot of this where a lot of people go right away is, how many tools do I buy and how many licenses, and people jump to that right away and they forget about the essence of on the big picture. And I'd love to be able to prove that that's the case.
So I'll be writing a summary of this on TechBeacon and publishing it probably in the next 2 weeks, give or take. Okay. We'll also be publishing a detailed, I think it's a 4-page summary of this specific part of the findings. There's a handful of different findings we came out with. This was one of the most interesting and surprising that we explored. Perfect. Thank you. So techbeacon.com.
Okay, I'll definitely make a note of that.
Yep.
Awesome. Any other questions? We might be a little bit over. Alrighty, thanks guys, appreciate it.